The claim I'm responding to is that there are biological factors that influence homosexuality. The secondary claims are that gay siblings indicate a biological relationship to homosexuality and that gene location shows causality to homosexuality. So the first claim that gay siblings indicate a biological relationship to homosexuality. The main problem with this first supporting claim is that the evidence used and the grounds used to support it do not make a logical warrant that justifies the main claim. The first piece of evidence is from a piece of literature by Dr. Cheryl Wheel that generalizes that homosexual men have about 4 times as many homosexual brothers than heterosexual men, and the same is true for females. Even though this is all on the study my opponent offers as evidence, I do not contend the validity of the evidence. Rather, I challenge at forming a logical connection to the idea that gay siblings indicate a relationship to homosexuality. The second piece of evidence is not much different. It is a 1999 study by a psychology professor named Dr. Bailey, who studies 2 groups of gay men consisting of 350 and 167 subjects. He concludes that 8.5% of male siblings and 3.3% of female siblings were gay in this study. This has the same inconclusive problem as the first piece. Also, a problem with the supporting claim in general is the term biological relationship. The term has a very large variations of meanings that my opponent does not clarify in their argument. The evidence my opponent uses does lead to see biological factors being an influence, but those factors are never explained. My opponent merely uses the term as a technique to evade any detailed reasoning. My opponent implies a relationship because of the idea that siblings who are both gay automatically means that they both share genetic traits, but this idea is never explained. A perfectly reasonable explanation for gay men and women having more gay siblings than homosexuals can be attributed to environmental factors. Epidemiologist Morton Frisch from the journal Archives of Sexual Behavior states, prenatal factors alone cannot account for the variation in human sexual orientation. Otherwise, all our urban rural and family dynamic findings should have shown no association. These brothers and sisters could have grown up in an environment where sociological and cultural factors influenced their supposed homosexuality, or the brothers and sisters could have been influenced by each other's sexual nature. The fact is, there is no warrant for this claim. Only small excerpts of observation that the opponent uses as reasoning, but have no logical connection or explanation going back to the claim. My second claim is that I'm now responding to is gene location shows causality to homosexuality. The first piece of evidence used to support the subclaim is a 1991 study by Dr. J. Michael Bailey at Northwestern University, who does a study on twins. He found that if one male sibling was homosexual, the chance that his identical twin was homosexual was 52%. The chance that his fraternal twin was homosexual was 22%, and the chance that his adopted brother would be homosexual was 11%. A companion study was done for homosexual females and found similar proportions and percentages for the female subjects. There are several reasoning challenges that the study already presents. The fact that the identical twins in the study were nearly half heterosexual puts extreme doubt to a genetic influence on homosexuality in twins. The percentage would need to have to be somewhere near 100% for any serious genetic base to be considered, since identical twins share all of the exact genetic traits that each other. In his book, Homosexuality and the Politics of Truth, Dr. Jeffrey Santanova states that the identical twins have more significant environmental influence with each other compared to non-identical twins. He identifies narcissism as a key component of homosexuality, which is more likely among identical twins who grow up with mirror images of themselves. Another study led by Dr. Kazi Raman studied 3,826 same-gender twin pairs who were asked questions about their past sexual partners and found that only 35% of the differences in male same-sex behavior can be attributed to genetics, and the rest is due to non-shared environmental factors. That is non-societal attitudes, family parenting, things that both twins wouldn't share together in the same environment. Women were included to have even less genetic factors involved in sexual orientation. Female same-sex behavior differences were only attributed to 18% genetics, and the rest was to environmental factors. According to Jackie Whelan of Dolan College, many researchers agree that Bailey's evidence is problematic. Bailey himself stated that he had trouble finding unbiased samples of the homosexual population. He also does not separate bisexualism from the sample study, which is a whole different area of study. The second piece of evidence used to support the secondary claim is a 1991 study by molecular biologist Dean Hammer, who studied 40 pairs of gay brothers using a technique called linkage mapping. He concluded that a region on the X chromosome called XQ28, which could be correlated to homosexuality. There are significant problems with the evidence used in this study. The National Institute of Health's Office of Research Integrity investigated Hammer for apparently ignoring evidence which conflicted with the study. They found that he was instead pushed for an agenda when he tried to get an Office of Gay and Lesbian Health inside the National Institutes of Health, and opposed Colorado's Amendment 2, which sought to keep homosexual activists from winning minority class status. It can be concluded that Hamer's evidence is extremely biased. In 1999, Drs. George Rice, Neil Risch, and George Evers conducted a study to try and replicate Hamer's XQ28 study for the same journal Hamer wrote for. They concluded that we were not able to confirm evidence for a XQ28 linked locus underlying male homosexuality. They confirmed that another group of scientists also failed to show a genetic connection to homosexuality. While my opponent does provide evidence that may lead some to believe the correlations she does, there are absolutely no instances in the first claim where causation is supported, and the second claim is severely challenged by studies that conflict with the opponents. Homosexuality and the science behind it is a pressing issue because it sets the arguments for socio-economic issues in politics, where sexual orientation is a huge factor. Considerable research is still needed on the subject, but I believe the evidence and reasoning I've laid out proves that there are more than just biological factors in the formation of individual sexual orientation. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, there are a lot of things that are sharp in this. You label the main points very clearly. This opening section, though, you go through this convoluted claim about the grounds in the warrant, and I know you're trying to apply the concepts that we discussed in class, but as an oral presentation, you need to simplify your claim, and it's much simpler than the way you've described it. Basically, you've got a counter-causality claim that applies on that first point, that the research fails to acknowledge this alternative causality, and that undermines the legitimacy of the conclusion that's being presented here. I just thought that your phrasing on that whole opening section was complicated until you got to the quote and explained what it was that you were saying. Then it was so much clearer what the point was. So I think you need to sometimes be a little careful. I know you're trying to, keep it at a professional level using the language of the subject, but this is a speech, don't forget, and instead of just reading to us a series of sentences with the phraseology strung in it, just look at us and tell us what the argument is. It's going to be so much clearer. All right, the transition to the second point was really fine. You do some time summarizing the issue that the argument that the advocate was presenting, and then you've got, again, this time it was a little bit clear. You've got a good statement of what the counterclaims are on why there could be other explanations for homosexuality in these particular studies. You also have specific challenges on a couple of the studies, and especially on the last one, you seem to go a little overboard. Some of the stuff about the criticism of the advocate or the researcher's political stuff, I'm not sure that is all that important, but the stuff about not being able to replicate the information, I think that works really well. Okay, thank you.